Whoever said dumpster diving wasn't a real sport? Look at all this stuff. Cigarette butts, paper plates, corroded batteries. Donnie doesn't know what he's missing. Oh, yuck. A half-eaten piece of pizza. I'm saving that for later, dude. Trump's taxes, location of Al Capone's second vault, Jimmy Hoffa. Whoa, a robot dude. Who are you? Are you Ed 209? Are you the ABC robot from 1995 smash hit Judge Dredd starring Sylvester Stallone? Are you the dude from Mystery Science Theater 3000? Are you the Mars rover? Are you Garage Opener? Are you a talk boy from Home Alone 2?
Well, I see at least Michelangelo was the same in this universe. The time transporter that Master Cody Jones and I were using malfunctioned and brought them into the future where they help us fight his Uncle Darius. It's all very convoluted. And all the while, Master Shokunobu was waiting on something called the Day of Awakening that I can't for the life of me remember what it actually was. And a future Shredder War that may or may not come to pass. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, I'm here to use this interdimensional transporter to help stop a dangerous alternate reality from... Wait, Michelangelo,
Whoa, I've seen Terminator and Loki, dude. I even sat through Genesis and Dark Fate. I know what's up. Let's save the multiverse.
What happened? Where am I?
Well, Serling, here they are. The Michelangelo Army. The only ones who can help save reality. Aren't you proud of me?
Why me? Why couldn't I have bumped into Leonardo instead?
Aren't we gonna save the multiverse?
Yeah, well, we can't just, give up, so let's go. Michelangelo forever, baby.
I mean, why are they even waitresses at Frisch's Big Boy anyway? I told Krang there was no way I was tipping. I tip at fine dining, say, in Olive Garden or Cracker Barrel. But anyway, I'm thinking about telling Krang how I really feel.
Hey, Shredder!
Michelangelo, the most pathetic turtle of all. You are nothing but a clown.
Yes! Why even fight when you can just land on them? Crisis on multiple Michelangelos.
Thank you so much, Mikeys. We prevented
Why,
Shredder
yes,
from...
thank you, my Michelangelo brethren. You have all saved reality and demonstrated once again why we are the best turtle. And now after this, we can retrieve other famous Michelangelos. TMNT Mikey, Next Mutation Mikey, canceled Hallmark Channel movie Michelangelo, abandoned 2001 CGI series Mikey. Turtle power!
Ow! You know, at first, I think Splinter wasn't really into the music thing, and we sure thought he wasn't going to be into it at all.
Whoa, and if you could have heard us... yeah, quotation!
Way to go!
Happening!
Hanging on, homeboy!
Oh, yeah!
Serling? Serling?
Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to continue our look at the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ultimates Wave 3 from Super 7 with Michelangelo. Now, Michelangelo here is the third of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that we have gotten in the line. So it's really great to see them filling them out as they go like this. So far, we've had one turtle per wave to anchor each wave, with Donatello being the final release for Wave 4 in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. After that, with Wave 5, it looks like we're going to be getting the Samurai Leonardo, so from there, I imagine we're going to get a set of variants based on those classic, kind of silly costume turtle variations. So here's hoping I get some of my favorites. Looking at Michelangelo, I think that it would be cool to start with a comparison, and I always do this for these, because these aren't really based on the cartoon or a movie or anything like that. These figures are indeed based on the original Playmates toys from the 80s. And here we have Michelangelo and his original counterpart. This is, of course, my actual Michelangelo toy from my childhood. I maybe have switched the belt out somewhere along the line. I'm not sure if that's the original belt because it's a little ill-fitting, but you get the idea. Basically, they have done a really good job of updating that sculpt, and you can see where they've taken all the original visual cues from that, especially with the expression on the head there. Very similar in what they've done and laid everything out. This is, of course, the same turtle body, I believe, for the most part, that we have gotten with the other releases, except, of course, it is colored a little differently. Of course, the head is different as well. It may just be my copy in particular, but I do feel like that they have decided to squint Michelangelo's eyes quite a bit more than that original figure, which is fine because when you compare him to those other original figures, indeed his eyes are squinted just a little bit more than the other guys. So it does make sense in that way, but it is, you know, one interesting visual difference, I suppose. Here's something I often forget to do. It is the back view. Now, this is where they take more, I think, artistic license than they do with a lot of the other figures, because they add all these grooves and texture to the shell piece. And I actually think it's a good thing that they do this. Before going any further, I do feel it's important to look at the actual sculpted detail on the figure. So starting with the head sculpt, like I said earlier, it is a really good translation of that original toy. I do feel like that the paint applications are pretty straight on mine. I feel like the application is fairly even. So I think it ends up looking good and quite similar to that original. Now, of course, there is an alternate head sculpt that is included that we'll get into in just a moment. Here we have the front of the shell, and I think it looks really good as well. Just the same kind of reuse we've seen so far from the line. All of the veins and kind of muscular detail on the arms I think are really nice and really brings out the sculpt. You can see that they've given the turtles much more sort of prominent necks than they had in those original toys, and I think that those turned out really well. You can see the belt is a different piece because, you know, they have to have the M sculpted on there. And the belts in this line actually do vary quite a bit with different implements on them to carry their weapons and accessories. Down here we have a similar detail going on with the legs, and I think these look really good. You can see there's even some ridges sculpted on the flesh there to kind of show that folds of skin are kind of moving. On the back, we can see those cool ridge details we talked about with a big scar in the back of the shell, as if he'd been cut in battle. I guess the turtles have been in very similar fights over the years because this is an exact replication of, say, Leonardo here. Appears to have pretty much the exact same marks on his shell. So that's something they probably should have changed. I understand, of course, why they didn't. They would have made them a little more unique. Looking at articulation, we'll do that very quickly because you know what to expect with this line. The head turns really, really well. It can look up better than it can look down, side to side all the way, and a little bit of cocking motion right there. You can see on the arms here that there are just hinges. So we just hinge that, and it can go beyond 90 degrees, which I think is pretty good. Moving on back down, we have a swivel at the bicep. The arm can, of course, go all the way around that way. The elbow pads kind of jam things up a little bit here on the elbow, and I don't want to go too hard because these are a softer rubber, so I'm always a little wary of that. But this is about what you can get comfortably, and that's pretty much 90 degrees, which I think is all right. However, for $55 a pop, which is what these will cost you, I do think that they should have been a little bit better articulated at the elbow. We do have a hinge there at the hand, so you can hinge it up and down depending on which alternate hand it is and what it does. And you can swivel it all the way around at the wrist. Moving on down, we can see that we do have kind of a waist swivel, but it's buried under the shell. So you're not going to be able to see it, but it's in there functioning a little bit. You can't make it go all the way around. Of course, down here at the legs, you can kick out really far, actually, way above 90. And keep in mind, though, it's having to split off from the side because this front shell is kind of blocking it. You can also get a split that is kind of crazy, so it's as much of a split as you would ever want. Going back, if you wanted him to do a back kick, I suppose, this is about what you're going to get before it knocks into the shell back here, so not really sure why you'd want to. If you want to take it all the way out, yeah, you could do that, but it kind of loses its kick nature. And down here, we do have a swivel at the thigh right there, and we do have a single joint at the knee. It does swivel though, so that's good. And then right here, we do have some articulation at the ankle. You get a really good pivot, and that's one of the very strongest points on this figure. And because of that ankle articulation, you can get some really, really good posing and wide stances. And those feet, as you can clearly see here, stay completely flat to the ground. Now, I have heard a lot of people comment on the feel of these figures and how there may be kind of a cheaper feel. But I don't really feel that very much with these. I think they actually feel pretty solid. I think they could have had kind of a little more weightiness to them because they feel a little lighter than I think you would expect. Some people talk about how it's not very stable here in the hips, but with Michelangelo here, he's pretty stable. I mean, you know, he stands just like that. So I'm not having those joint tolerance problems. Those have been issues for me on some of the previous releases, though. Say, for instance, Raphael here, the first turtle they released, is a lot more kind of loosey-goosey in that area. So apparently they may be fixing some of that in production. However, I'm not trying to dispel any of those criticisms. Those criticisms are perfectly valid when you're paying nearly $60 for a figure. Let's go ahead and switch the head out. And here we have the kind of more modernized Four Horsemen Studios head right here. That's just kind of like, I would almost call it the modern comics sort of head. It looks really great. I'm actually a bigger fan of this alternate head than I have been a lot of the other ones. I feel like this is just more expressive. It's more fun. I feel like they took more chances with this head for Michelangelo. So I'm really liking it. I particularly like how the bandana does crazy stuff here in the back. And I just think this one worked out great. So I'm more tempted to leave this one on than I have been with a lot of the alternate heads. Speaking of that, let's leave it on for the accessory portion. The first accessories we'll talk about are the ones that are already in his hands. You have these metal chains here that link these nunchucks. And these look fantastic. I really like the paint detail. This brown is the perfect tone, by the way, to go with those original weaponry plastic that they would do. We get another one over here. It's exactly the same. I love the weightiness of these. You can see them jiggle all through the review, but that's just kind of letting you know that these chains are, you know, they take motion in really interesting ways. It doesn't take much, and they're all over the place because they're pretty weighty. So it actually has a little bit of gravity to them as you mess around with the figure. So I really like that, actually, and I think these are fantastic. Speaking of weapons, you also get these interesting versions of the nunchucks. I really like this because these are just solid plastic that's painted with kind of a metallic silver. That means that you can't really get these guys to like jut out like this for poses like in mid-fight, but these will work perfectly for that. So I thought that was actually very considerate. You get several Japanese blades that go with him for ninja weapons. These are just painted versions of what you would have seen on the actual weapons tree like from back in the day. No Ultimates release is complete without throwing stars. Keep in mind you do get a weapons tree just like the classic releases, and they've done a good job of making sure these can stand a heck of a lot easier than back in the day when they released Raphael. You get a huge assortment of alternate hands here. You get fists for both hands. Of course, you see the two open hands, the grasping hands that are actually holding the nunchucks there. You do get two open hands like he's doing a martial arts pose, and a couple of other grasping hands as well. Now, for our European fans who are watching, you may remember that a lot of the times anything with Michelangelo's nunchucks were cut out of the original cartoon, and of course that cartoon was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in Europe for censorship reasons. The nunchucks were considered too violent, so a lot of the time he was pictured with this grappling hook, and they have actually included it, which I thought was really cool and something I did not expect. These aren't posable, so they don't go back in, but this is what Michelangelo used, especially in later seasons of the show, when they kind of stopped having two versions, and they pretty well did away with the nunchucks and just had him using this instead. Unfortunately, there is a paint blemish on mine right there that's pretty noticeable, but nothing I couldn't fix. But it is unfortunate when you're paying this much for this kind of figure, so that's a little unfortunate. We do have an actual like rope that's on there, and I think you get some pretty interesting things with this, but because this is just, you know, a regular old rope, it's not like you're going to be able to throw it out and have it like midair. You would have to get creative with your posing. Maybe the most interesting accessory is this hard plastic pizza box here. You can see it just says pizza on each side, nothing at the bottom. But on the inside, you have cheese stuck on the top and a piece of pizza that's affixed to the box. So I do think that that's pretty neat, and I think it looks right in terms of scale. So I guess this means that we have 3 out of 4 original Turtles so far. I think together they look really nice, and I really appreciate the emphasis on making sure that the skin tones were drastically different for these releases. I've always very much preferred it when the skin tones are kind of, you know, totally different greens. I feel like it gives the Turtles more of their own identity. So I actually do appreciate it, and I think these guys look wonderful together. Fantastic. And of course, we can't talk about accessories without showing you the actual accessory storage on the back. This looks fantastic, and it holds very, very well, and I think it works a lot better than the previous weapon storage that we've seen with the other two guys. But it is worth noting that you see how they have these larger kind of bottoms here. I don't think these are removable. I think this is all just one piece through here, so I couldn't take them off when I inserted these in, and it kind of, you know, warped this out as it went through. It didn't damage anything. And I know that they're kind of the soft rubber on the belt that's designed to kind of stretch as you pull this through, because I wasn't really sure if it was going to damage anything. So I don't see me putting this in there and then taken out all the time. I just thought it was cool to show you guys. Of course, I'm going to have him posed with them. And here he is holding some of the alternative weapon options, just so you can see what that looks like. Of course, we should look at how Michelangelo scales with some of the human-sized characters. Here we have April, and here we have Oroku Saki.
For those that don't know, Oroku Saki is Shredder's real name. I'm gatekeeping.
So you can see that the scales line up really, really well. And then if you really want some scale variants, you can get the Shredder's lackeys back there with Bebop and Rocksteady, who are both about twice as massive as I ever thought they would be. Here it is zoomed out a little bit so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. These guys are huge. Something that frequent viewers of this channel already know about me is I'm a long-timer when it comes to Ninja Turtles figures. So what I'm going to do is take you on a little trip through history with all of my old Michelangelo figures so that we can see how they compare to this new one. Here's a Michelangelo figure that probably predates all of my others. This was a sucker holder that I got at a local steakhouse. And you can see that it's pretty ancient, and it was like one of those things that they would sell like at the cash register when you were like settling up your bill. And this is pretty old, and it might actually be my oldest Michelangelo figure. Here's the Michelangelo figure that could talk when you pulled the cord through the shell. I think these two look pretty cool together. Here's one of my favorite variants of the Turtles of all time. This one was one of my favorites when I was a kid. Here's hoping we're right back here in a couple years and I can play a clip from this video saying that I'm hoping that Super 7 updates this one. Here is my original childhood-owned, childhood battle-worn movie star Michelangelo from Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. I'm really wondering if they actually possess the rights, if Super 7 can actually do updates where they remake these toy versions of the movie figures. I wonder. Here's the Turtles 3 version of Michelangelo, and the less said about Turtles 3 the movie, the better, but I thought the toy line was really cool. And there he is without the mask. One of my favorites, this was the transforming Michelangelo, where you could actually turn him into the baby turtle and then back to the regular. These were by far me and my brother's favorite turtle figures when we were kids. Here is the release from the 2003 For Kids animated series of Michelangelo. In my personal opinion, it's still the very best show that was ever created from the Ninja Turtles, so if you've not watched it, check it out. That led to the highly underrated Fast Forward. There was a clone of Michelangelo in the series. As you may know, these guys are fairly rare, and they even did baby versions of the Turtles for the 2003 show. Don't forget, they did another movie of the Turtles later on, and another movie of the Turtles later on. An interesting variant from that as well, with Michelangelo dressed as a pirate. And who can forget the Nickelodeon CGI series? Of course, these were done in 3 3/4 scale. I always really like these figures, and I think their longevity on shelves really shows that customers love these as well. I think the next time that Playmates decides to launch a major Turtles rebranding, they need to look at what they did right with this before moving on and looking at possibilities for other interpretations of the series. More of this and less of what they did with Rise of the TMNT. Because this right here, this was money. Keep in mind that Playmates tried their hand recently at comic book styled turtles, and they're in quite a bit larger scale than these guys are. You know, these are a heck of a lot cheaper than this, but they're just not very strong in a lot of areas that I wish they were. So it's funny to see them together like this. I think this is Michelangelo, but I don't know. It's hard to keep them straight. By that same token, I'm not really sure which one this was either, because it's hard to keep them straight now that their accessories were kind of separated from them. But this was also Playmates' attempt at doing another comic turtle. The sculpt on this is fantastic. I wish they just would have upsized this for the one I just shown you. Of course, we can't forget the live-action Turtles releases from NECA Toys and how they compare with this toy-inspired figure. Clearly, you know, it would be easy to look at these and be like, oh, well, you know, NECA is much cheaper and, of course, much more detailed, but consider that this is supposed to just be a replication of the original 80s figure, and they're not meant to replicate those super hyper-realistic details that NECA Toys does. Also consider that these are manufactured in much smaller numbers and do not have a general release outlet like a Walmart or Target or anything like that, whereas these guys back here do see some general release, and NECA is able to get those to consumers at a little bit lower price for that reason. This is definitely more of a niche made-to-order collectible. It is important to note that this costs $55 versus the much better bargain of getting $25 for this guy. So technically, you are looking at something that is less than half the cost with better articulation, and it's larger. So it does make a tough sell for the Super 7 stuff, but like I said, It's that limited nature, and it's more of a specialty toy for a very, very small audience. Alright friends, that'll do it for me. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this new release from Super 7. Does it live up to your expectations for the modern reimagining of that original Michelangelo figure, or do you feel that there's some things that they could have done a little differently? Let me know in the comments down below. As for me, I really, really love what they've done with Michelangelo. However, the price may be a big turnoff to many, many folks. So keep that in mind as you're buying this, that you're definitely paying that premium price point. Well friends, that'll do it for me. God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.
Hanging on, homeboy!
Oh, yeah.
Sterling?